I've been reborn. Reborn back at the family reunion banquet. At this moment, the extreme cold and zombies sweeping the globe are just 3 months away. In the hall of the Davis villa, filled with guests, Chloe was in a designer gown, all smiles, the picture of a perfect heiress, and I was in a worn-out coat, totally out of place. My biological parents, Robert and Susan Davis, sat at the head of the table. When they looked at Chloe, their eyes were practically dripping with love. But when they looked at me, there was only polite, distant guilt, like I was just some unimportant guest. When Chloe and I were born, a nurse mixed us up, swapping our lives. I grew up in the poor Smith family, while Chloe became the only daughter of the richest Davis family. In my previous life, to fit in with the Davises, I left my adoptive parents in the Smith family and threw myself into this so-called biological family. But they already saw Chloe as their real daughter, leaving her all the family wealth and resources. I, the rightful true heiress, became nothing but an intruder. After the apocalypse struck, supplies ran out fast. To save the food they'd stored for Chloe, they cruelly shoved me out the villa's front door. Outside, it was tens of degrees below zero with zombies roaming around, wrapped in thin clothes. I froze to death in the street, and the 3 Davises didn't escape being ransacked by the thug gang, ending up slaughtering each other. Susan gently pushed the pen in front of me, her tone carrying a barely concealed urgency, with her eyes darting toward Chloe beside her, urging me to sign the family reunion agreement. She said the agreement clearly stated that after I returned to the Davis family, the inheritance still belonged to Chloe. I couldn't compete with her, and I had to put her first in everything.
Harper, just sign it. Once you sign, we're family.
Chloe immediately tightened her grip on Susan's arm, her eyes a little red, putting on a hurt look, but unable to hide the smugness in her eyes. She was sure I'd cling to that hollow blood tie. I let out a cold laugh. I said flatly, "I'm not signing," and the whispers around me stopped instantly. All eyes were on me. This seemingly glamorous wealthy family will be a living hell in 3 months. And I won't make the same mistake again. Robert's face darkened. He slammed the table and barked,
"Don't be ridiculous. We're trying to make it up to you."
"Make it up by making your biological daughter and adopted daughter work like slaves for you." My tone was calm but sharp. Before he could argue, Chloe's eyes turned red. She tugged his arm and whined, "Dad,
Harper is bullying me."
Robert immediately stepped in front of her and said sternly,
"Even if Chloe was wrong, as her older sister, you should be more understanding."
That sentence was the last straw. It crushed the last shred of hope I had for my biological parents. I raised my hand and used my strength. The agreement was torn into 1,000 pieces. They fell onto the shiny floor, scattered along with my worthless blood ties. I'm not signing the agreement, and I don't want the position of the Davis family's eldest daughter. I looked up at Robert and his wife, and said resolutely, "Give me $2 million in cash compensation. Then we'll be even and never have anything to do with each other." While the guests' murmurs rose and fell, their eyes full of mockery. Robert's face was livid. After a tense moment, he finally, for the sake of appearances, gritted his teeth and agreed. The moment I got the transfer notification, all I felt was relief. That money was enough for us to start stockpiling supplies for the apocalypse. As I turned, I took out the Smith family pendant my adoptive father had given me. He told me to give it to Chloe, saying it was a gift for the Davis family's biological daughter. It was a piece of old, pale green jade, with a familiar warmth. I handed it to Chloe, considering it the last bit of goodwill. But she wrinkled her nose in disgust, and violently knocked it away. The pendant fell to the floor, with a crisp sound. I bent down, picked it up, and brushed off the dust, clutching it tightly. It seemed even warmer. Without looking back at the Davis family's sour faces, I walked straight out of the banquet hall. Outside, it had started to rain, cold drops stinging me, with a bone-chilling cold. This was the sign of the coming extreme cold. Just then, an old minivan pulled up slowly. My adoptive mother, Martha, stuck her head out, waving at me with a worried look. Her voice came through the rain. "Sweetie, Mom's here to take you home." I opened the door, and slid into the warm car. I took the dry towel my adoptive mother handed me, and seeing the white hair at her temples, I silently resolved, in this life, I'll only protect my adoptive parents, and live well. And the Smith family's old house in the countryside will definitely become our strong bunker against the apocalypse. The van drove out of the city, heading to the Smith family's ancestral home on the outskirts. It was still raining, pattering against the car window. Watching the neon lights fade away outside the window, giving way to vast fields and low houses, I finally felt my tense nerves completely relax. My adoptive mother, Martha, was driving, while chattering on about what happened at the family reunion banquet. Her tone was full of concern. But she didn't say a single word about me going back. She was always like this, only hoping I'd be happy. The Smith family's ancestral home was an old house with a yard, enclosed by adobe walls. In the yard grew 2 old jujube trees. At the corner was a pile of firewood that my adoptive father, Arthur, had chopped. My adoptive father was already waiting at the door. Seeing the car stop, he immediately came over with an umbrella. He took the bag from my hand.
And just said, "Good to have you home."
Then he turned and went to the kitchen to heat up some water. Watching my adoptive parents bustle about, I felt a lump in my throat. In my past life, I was foolishly obsessed with my biological parents' approval and had ignored the warmth here. In the end, I ended up freezing to death on the street. In this life, with them here, this is truly home. I touched the jade pendant in my pocket. Its warmth seeped through the fabric. It felt even more noticeable than at the Davis family's banquet hall. After dinner, my adoptive parents, worried I was tired, urged me to go to my room and rest. The room in the old house was not big, simply furnished but clean and tidy. There were still awards from my childhood on the wall. I sat on the edge of the bed and took out the jade pendant from my pocket. I examined it carefully under the desk lamp. On the greenish-white surface were faint carvings. I used to just think it was an ordinary ornament, but now it seemed rather mysterious. Somehow, a sharp pain shot through my fingertip. It turned out my fingernail had accidentally cut my finger. A drop of bright red blood appeared and happened to fall into the grooves of the jade pendant. I was about to find a tissue to wipe it, but saw the blood slowly seep into the jade along the carvings. The previously dull jade pendant suddenly glowed with a soft, green light. Then a pulling force came from the jade pendant. I felt a blur before my eyes and found myself in a strange dimension. I stood there, frozen in shock. In front of me was a stretch of fertile black soil, endless as far as the eye could see. It must have been hundreds of acres. The soil was soft and moist, teeming with life. A clear spring was nearby, the water crystal clear, with a faint white mist rising. The air smelled of fresh grass and trees. Even more surprising, at the edge of the land, there was a log-built storage cabin. I pushed the door open, and it was completely empty, but surprisingly spacious. Clearly, it was for storage. I muttered to myself, reaching out to touch the spring. A piercing coolness shot through my fingertips, yet mixed with a hint of warmth, spreading from my fingertips all through my body. I suddenly realized, this was the legendary dimension, brought by this ancestral pendant from my adoptive father. With a thought, I was back in my room in an instant, still clutching the pendant, but now the patterns on the jade were clear and glowing. I was too excited to contain myself, got up, hurried to my adoptive parents' room, and knocked gently. My adoptive father opened the door, a coat tossed over his shoulders. Seeing how excited I was, he quickly asked what was going on. I told him everything about the pendant and what had happened, holding nothing back. I even took his hand, and with a thought, brought him into the dimension. My adoptive father stood on the fertile black soil, his eyes wide as he reached down to touch the soil, then walked over to the spring and scooped up some water. It was a long moment before he snapped out of it. His voice was trembling.
"This is what your grandma left us."
He told me, when Grandma was alive, she said, the Smith family had a family heirloom that could protect the family, but no one could ever activate it. Before she died, Grandma gave the jade pendant to him, telling him to pass it down to the Smith family's descendants and keep it safe. He never expected the pendant to be something so miraculous.
"With this, we've got a shot in the apocalypse."
My adoptive father looked at the fertile black soil and the magic spring, his tone full of relief.
"This black soil can grow crops, and the spring water can heal. And the storage cabin can store supplies. We don't have to worry about shortages anymore."
Seeing that my adoptive parents had accepted the existence of the dimension, I took a deep breath and spoke solemnly. I revealed the secret of the apocalypse. "Mom and Dad, there's something I need to tell you clearly. In 3 months, extreme freezing weather will hit the globe. Temperatures could drop to minus 150 degrees. There will also be unknown disasters. Many people will become abnormally aggressive. In other words, zombies. The apocalypse is coming." The joy on my adoptive father's face instantly froze. He frowned deeply in thought. My adoptive mother also gripped my hand tightly. Her eyes were full of shock. But she didn't question it right away. After a moment, my adoptive father looked at my determined eyes, then looked down at the miraculous dimension. He said solemnly, "Sweetie."
"Is what you said about the previous life true?"
I nodded firmly. My eyes welled up. "It's true. I can confirm the timing. In my past life, I didn't prepare in advance. And I got kicked out by the Davis family. Eventually, I froze to death on the street. This time, with Grandma's dimension, and with you here, I think we can prepare ahead of time, and live through this safely." My adoptive mother pulled me into her arms, her voice choked up but incredibly firm. "Silly girl, you've been wronged, whether it's the apocalypse or any difficulty.
Our family of 3 will face it together."
My adoptive father also patted my shoulder firmly.
"All right, we believe you. Starting today, we'll stock up and renovate the ancestral home, turning this place into a bunker that can withstand any danger."
After we came out of the dimension, we discussed the stockpiling and renovation plans all night. Under the light, my adoptive parents showed no panic, only love and determination remained. I clenched the jade pendant in my palm, feeling incredibly at ease. In this life, with the dimension as my aid, and my family by my side, even the most terrifying apocalypse is nothing to fear. At the same time, at the Davis villa in the city, it was a different scene. Chloe sat on the sofa and whined to Robert and Susan, her tone displeased. Mom and Dad.
Today, Harper embarrassed me at the banquet. You have to make it up to me. I want the newest sports car, otherwise, I'm not letting this go.
Susan immediately hugged her and soothed. All right.
My good girl, Mom and Dad will buy it for you.
We'll order it tomorrow. Robert chimed in as well, completely unfazed by the embarrassment at the banquet, nor did they ever think about the apocalyptic catastrophe that would strike in 3 months. They were still indulging in the lavish pleasures of the wealthy, believing they could live peacefully forever, not knowing the seeds of destruction had already been sown. Just before dawn, the 3 of us finalized our stockpiling and renovation plans in the main room. $2 million in compensation had to cover supplies and bunker materials, so every cent had to count. We quickly divided up the tasks. I was in charge of contacting suppliers online and offline in batches, buying food, medicine, and cold weather supplies, and picking up goods late at night to avoid drawing attention. My adoptive mother made the list, picking only the essentials, no waste allowed. My adoptive father contacted an old army buddy to secure a diesel generator, plus diesel, reinforced concrete, and other materials. In the apocalypse, extreme cold means blackouts, and a generator and solid materials are key to survival. After the first batch of supplies arrived at the old house, I moved them into the dimension when no one was looking, and found the storage cabin could sort everything automatically. Food went to the west side, medicine to the east shelves, and cold weather gear in the middle, neat and fresh, saving us tons of organizing work. For a whole week, we stocked up non-stop. Non-perishable staples, dehydrated veggies, energy bars, and vitamins filled half the storage cabin. First aid, cold weather meds, sanitation gear, everything, axes, ropes, flashlights, spare batteries. We had plenty of extras too. My adoptive father's old army buddy not only delivered 2 high-powered generators at wholesale price but also set aside 185 gallons of diesel, warning us that more people were making unusual purchases lately and to be careful. When we had stocked up most of the supplies, my adoptive father started inventorying the building materials, preparing for the bunker upgrade, while my adoptive mother and I filled buckets with the magic spring water, some for storage in the dimension, and some for daily drinking. Each of us did our part with perfect coordination. That morning, I went through proper consumer credit channels and got a loan of $600,000, and with the original compensation, the $1,100,000 in purchasing funds was all in place. We split into 3 groups, where I handled contacting suppliers online and offline, batch buying food, medicine, and cold weather gear, while my adoptive mother organized the list, filtering out must-haves to avoid waste, and my adoptive father started contacting his old army buddy to ask about buying diesel generators and diesel, because when the extreme cold hits in the apocalypse, there'll be blackouts, making generators a must for survival. We had to be super secretive about the whole purchasing process, so I specifically chose suppliers from different areas and placed orders in batches, and I also went to pick up stuff in person, either early morning or late at night, with my adoptive father driving the van to assist. When the first batch of supplies arrived at the old house, I waited till no one was around, and with a thought, moved all the boxes into the dimension, and as soon as I let go, the storage cabin started sorting everything automatically, where survival biscuits, rice, canned goods, and other food were gathered to the west side, stacked neatly and looking fresh, while cold medicine, antibiotics, first aid kits, and other medical supplies were placed on the east shelves with clear labels, and down jackets, warm sleeping bags, and thick quilts were piled in the corner in the middle, moisture-proof and bug-proof. The Dimension's automatic sorting function saved us the hassle of organizing and made storage more orderly. For a whole week, we were stockpiling supplies non-stop, and for food, besides long-lasting staples, we also bought lots of dehydrated vegetables, chocolate, and energy bars, and even stocked dozens of boxes of vitamin tablets, while for medicine, we focused on first aid and cold weather stuff. So fever reducers, painkillers, and frostbite ointment filled most of a shelf, and for tools, from axes, saws, ropes, and flashlights to spare batteries, we had everything, and we also bought a few manual sewing machines and plenty of needles and thread for clothing repairs. Every time I sent supplies into the dimension, watching the storage cabin fill up day by day, it gave me a little more peace of mind. My adoptive father also made progress, as his old army buddy, who retired and opened a hardware store, had connections for diesel generators through official channels, and he not only agreed to sell us 2 high-powered generators at wholesale price, but also set aside 50 gallons of diesel and could later help us get another 130 gallons. On the day of pickup, the old army buddy specifically warned us that lately, a lot of people had been buying generators and cold weather gear in bulk, telling us to be extra careful, and he sounded a bit uneasy. Meaning, maybe the early signs of the apocalypse were already showing in small circles. After the generator was delivered to the old house, my adoptive father right away found a hidden corner to stash it, and figured out how to install it, planning to start renovating the ancestral home once the stockpiling was done. hooking up the generator to the underground shelter's wiring. My adoptive mother was busy pouring the magic spring water into clean buckets and stashing them in the dimension. The magic spring water wasn't just for drinking. It also gave off a gentle warmth, enough to ward off some of the extreme cold in the apocalypse. We all cherished it deeply. Everyone in the family pitched in, not a single complaint. This warmth of unity was something I'd never had in my past life. Meanwhile, at the Davis Villa, it was all peace and partying. Chloe got the new sports car she wanted, and threw a party at home. She invited a bunch of friends to celebrate. She was posting on social media constantly, showing off champagne, fancy food, and a crowd of guests. One post read, "Certain people are gone. The air feels fresher, and from now on, I'll just enjoy life." In the picture, she was leaning against Robert and Susan. She had a smug, arrogant smirk. I saw that social media update. I was hauling diesel barrels into the dimension with my dad at the time. I stared at the lavish scene on the screen. I just sneered. The Davises were still living in a false sense of security. They were spending like there was no tomorrow. They didn't realize the catastrophe was coming. They were proud of their wealth and status, but it would mean nothing against zombies and extreme cold. Late at night, we took a break from stockpiling. We sat in the kitchen. We ate the noodles my mum had cooked. We discussed the next steps for the ancestral home renovation. Outside, the night grew darker, and the chill was sharper than ever. The apocalypse was getting closer, but I looked at my adoptive parents and thought about the ample supplies in the dimension. The generator was also on its way. I wasn't scared. This time, we were ready. Stockpiling was almost done, so Arthur Smith, my adoptive father, put all his energy into renovating the ancestral home. He pulled out his cherished old blueprints and spread them out on the 8 Immortals table in the main hall. He carefully sketched the structure of the underground bunker in pencil. He planned to build beneath the main hall 3 levels of underground space, each level 2.5 meters high. The functional zones were clearly laid out, balancing both safety and survival needs. Construction materials still came through my adoptive father's old army buddy. In addition to reinforced concrete and waterproof membrane, he ordered 2 heavy blast doors to be installed at the ground entrance and between levels 1 and 2. They could withstand zombie attacks and forced entry from outside. My adoptive father said the first underground level would be a storage room and medical room. They would move some medicine and tools from the dimension. The emergency medical room would be sectioned off, with beds and sterilizing equipment. The second level would be the living area, divided into 3 rooms, equipped with heating panels and soundproofing. The third level was planned as an ecological farm, irrigated with water from the magic spring in the dimension. In the constant temperature environment, they would grow fast-maturing vegetables to solve the long-term veggie supply after the apocalypse. On the day construction began, we invited 2 of my adoptive father's trusted old buddies to help. We told people it was just foundation work and damp proofing for the old house. When the excavator rolled into the yard, it drew quite a crowd of curious neighbors. Some peered through the gate, craning their necks. Their murmurs drifted in intermittently. What's the Smith family up to? Digging so deep? Are they building a basement for storage? You bet. Buying rebar, installing heavy doors, going to all this trouble. They must be crazy. Some even whispered that we'd won the lottery and were splurging on construction. My adoptive parents and I heard it loud and clear. We just exchanged smiles and didn't bother to explain. The apocalypse was coming. Others' confusion and gossip no longer mattered. Only by building this bunker well could we carve out a sliver of hope in the catastrophe. During a break, my adoptive mother handed out tea to the watching neighbors. She laughed it off and brushed it off. She didn't offend anyone and kept our secret safe. Construction was in full swing. My adoptive father supervised the entire process. He personally checked each rebar tie and waterproofing detail. No shortcuts. My adoptive mother and I were busy organizing supplies from the dimension. We moved basic meds and first aid gear to the medical room on the first basement level early. We put warm bedding and daily stuff in the living area on the second basement level. We also installed ventilation ducts on each floor, equipped with small exhaust fans to keep the air moving underground. We stored the magic spring water in special barrels, some in the farm on the third basement level as backup, and some as daily drinking water. Meanwhile, things were getting tense at the Davis Villa in the city. Robert sat on the sofa, phone in hand, my contact info on the screen. He looked torn, uncertain. Lately, the weather's been crazy, extreme cold everywhere. He had a nagging feeling of unease. Remembering how I left so stubbornly, he felt a sudden urge to reach out. If something really goes down, maybe I could help. That hesitation barely surfaced before Chloe's crying cut it short. She spotted Robert's phone screen, stormed over, grabbed it, and threw it down.
Eyes red, she screamed, "Dad, you still want to contact that woman?"
She embarrassed us in front of everyone back then. And you're still thinking about her? It's her or me. Susan rushed over and hugged Chloe, comforting her while scolding Robert.
Why do you have to bring her up? Now you've upset Chloe. Our family is so rich. Even if the sky falls, we'll figure it out. Why go looking for trouble with her?
Robert watched Chloe, still sobbing. He finally held back the urge to contact me. He picked up his phone and deleted my contact. That little unease was drowned out by the arrogance of wealth. A week later, the 3-level underground bunker was taking shape. The blast door was installed. Once that heavy door slammed shut, the whole underground space instantly felt safe and solid. Standing in the ecological farm on the 3rd basement level, seeing the leveled soil and irrigation hooks, my adoptive father breathed a long sigh of relief.
A few more days of finishing, and the bunker's good to go.
I looked at my adoptive parents, tired but determined, and felt completely secure. The bunker's almost finished. I remembered the dimensions, hundreds of acres of fertile black soil. I grabbed some potato seeds from town. I wanted to test the magic spring water. I picked a small plot in the corner. I planted the seeds in the moist black soil. After soaking the soil with magic spring water, I marked the spot. I checked on them every day. In just 3 days, the potatoes had gone from sprouts to full-grown plants. The potatoes I dug up were nice and plump. The skins were shiny and healthy looking. Even more amazing, even when left outside in below freezing temperatures, they showed no frost damage. They were naturally cold resistant. What surprised us even more, at the same time the potatoes matured, the unused area on the east side of the dimension quietly revealed a low fence. Soft dry hay covered the ground, and the air smelled faintly of grass and earth. My adoptive father reached out to touch the fence. His eyes lit up.
This is dimensional evolution, and we can raise livestock now.
We decided to start with chickens right away. They can provide both eggs and meat, making them a great protein source for the apocalypse. The same day, we called a farmer and ordered 50 chicks. Late that night, after finishing the bunker work, the 3 of us grabbed the prepped wooden wire mesh and entered the dimension. For the coop, my adoptive father handled the frame. He measured precisely, fixed the wooden posts, his movements quick and neat. My adoptive mother and I cut the wire mesh and enclosed the coop to keep the flock from escaping. The dimension was pleasantly warm, so working kept us cozy. We worked past midnight to finish it. My adoptive mother had prepared brown sugar water, stored in a thermos and brought into the dimension. She handed a bowl to my adoptive father and me.
Here, drink this to warm up. Don't overwork yourselves.
The sweet brown sugar water went down, warmth spreading from my throat throughout my body. Looking at my smiling adoptive parents beside me, I felt so reassured. In my past life, I never had such cozy warmth. The warmth of this life is enough to withstand any cold ahead. When the chicks arrived, we carefully moved them into the dimensional coop. We mixed the feed with magic spring water and fed them. After drinking the water, the chicks perked up, chirping and pacing in the coop with no signs of stress. My adoptive father looked at the chicks, smiled, and said,
"In a while, we'll be able to eat fresh eggs. The dimension is temperature controlled, so the chicks can safely survive the winter."
Meanwhile, the Davis villa in the city was full of complaints. Recently, the temperature had dropped sharply. Although the heating in the villa area was on, it was nowhere near enough for Chloe. She was wrapped in a mink coat, sitting on the sofa, stomping her feet and complaining, "This heating totally sucks. I'm freezing to death. I can't stay in here." Seeing this, Susan hurried over to wrap her tighter in a blanket, soothing her while instructing the servants.
Get someone here tonight to install central air conditioning throughout the villa. Put it in every single room.
Make sure Chloe gets warm. Robert also chimed in, totally unaware of how weird the temperature was. They just thought it was a normal cold winter, believing money could solve everything. They were totally unprepared for the apocalyptic catastrophe heading their way. At the Smith family's old house late at night, I stood in the yard looking up at the night sky. The air was chillier than usual. From afar came a few vague, low growls, neither like an animal, nor like a human voice. They were eerily indescribable. Though unclear, they made my heart clench. Last day to wrap up the bunker. A red emergency alert suddenly popped up on TV. The screen was filled with glaring white text on red. A global simultaneous broadcast.
Extreme freezing weather will sweep the entire globe in 3 days. Along with an unknown infectious disaster, some areas are already reporting abnormal human behavior. Citizens are urged to stock up on supplies immediately, prepare to take shelter, do not go out unless necessary.
The news anchor sounded urgent. In the background, there were chaotic scenes of panic buying. A few blurry clips also flashed on screen. In the footage, people were staggering. They were extremely violent. They were being restrained by staff. The once vague apocalyptic omens had finally become a dead certainty. We 3 immediately dropped everything. We gave the underground bunker a final full check. My adoptive father tested the 2 blast doors over and over. The heavy metallic thud when closing was solid and powerful. The latches clicked firmly. They were strong enough to withstand external impact. I checked every ventilation duct and exhaust fan. This ensured air circulation on every floor. Then I checked the medical supplies in the medical room on the 1st basement level. The emergency water supply, bottled from the magic spring water, was placed in a visible spot. My adoptive mother took stock of the warm supplies in the living area. She laid out folded thick quilts and down jackets on the beds. Even the backup hand warmers were charged. We didn't forget the dimension either. When I went in to check, another batch of cold-resistant potatoes had ripened. They carpeted the fertile black soil thickly. The newly hatched chicks were pecking at feed in the newly built chicken coop. The magic spring water still gave off a faint white mist. My adoptive father crouched in the potato field and reached down to pull up a potato.
He smiled and said, with all this, even if it's freezing outside, we'll get by just fine.
In the evening, my adoptive mother pulled out 3 pairs of thick cotton boots from the cabinet. The uppers had fine, tight stitches. They were stuffed with soft cotton. They felt thick and warm to the touch. I knew it was going to get cold, so I sewed these boots ahead of time. She handed a pair to me and another to my adoptive father. Her eyes were full of tenderness. As long as we're all together, and we dress warmly, we'll get through this. I held the cotton boots, my fingertips feeling the warmth of the fabric. My heart was burning with warmth. This is the greatest comfort in the apocalypse. Meanwhile, the Davis family in the city was in chaos and conflict. After the red alert, Robert and Susan Davis completely panicked. Gone was their usual wealthy composure. They drove through supermarkets and drugstores, frantically buying supplies. Shelves were cleared, checkout lines stretched long. Exhausted and sweating, they only managed to grab a small amount of food and medicine. But Chloe Davis felt no sense of urgency. Instead, she whined to Susan, insisting on buying luxury goods first. Now everything's in chaos. Only gold and designer bags hold their value.
Once this blows over, these can be cashed in. Much better than hoarding useless food.
Ignoring Robert's protests, she stormed into a luxury store with her credit card, maxing it out. She bought loads of jewelry and limited edition bags. She turned a blind eye to the empty supermarket shelves. Susan felt for her daughter, couldn't stand up to her, and gave in. She followed Chloe from one luxury store to another, leaving the supplies in the car unattended. Robert looked at the car full of luxuries, and the meager survival supplies, frowning deeply. His unease grew stronger, but Chloe's tantrum left him at a loss, so he just let her spend. Late at night, the lights in the Smith family's old house were still on. We moved the last batch of supplies into the dimension, closed the blast door of the underground bunker, shutting out the chaos and cold outside. My adoptive mother made a pot of hot soup. The 3 of us sat around the stove, drinking the soup, wearing thick cotton shoes, looked at each other, and saw determination in each other's eyes. The chill outside grew sharper, the eerie howls in the distance clearer, occasionally mixed with faint screams. The uneasy feeling thickened, but we felt no panic. With 3 days until the apocalypse, we were already fully prepared. In the dead of night, a piercing chill seeped through the old house's walls. I woke with a start. The moment I threw off the covers, my fingers went numb in the cold. Outside the window, the wind howled like a beast. There were also sharp cracks of stuff freezing and splitting. My adoptive father had already gotten up to check. He pushed open the observation window on the bunker's vent.
He said grimly, the temperature dropped at least 100 degrees, and outside it must be minus 60 degrees.
He fired up the bunker's climate control system, which we had specially added during the retrofit. It's powered by a diesel generator, and keeps the temp in the 3 underground levels stable at about 68 degrees. With the machine's low hum, warmth slowly spread, chasing away the lingering chill. My nerves started to relax. My adoptive mother came out of her room, rubbing her eyes, holding a few thick coats in her hands. Good thing we were prepared. In this weather, you'd freeze solid in minutes out there. As dawn broke, my adoptive mother suggested making hand-pulled noodles, saying hot noodle soup warms the body, and it's also a comfort, a symbol of peace. She kneaded, rolled, and cut the noodles quickly and skillfully. My adoptive father and I helped out, adding wood and boiling water. The bunker filled with the smell of flour and the cozy warmth of cooking. Soon, 3 big bowls of steaming hand-pulled noodles were on the table, each with a poached egg, sprinkled with green onions. The broth was rich and piping hot. We 3 sat together, slurping the noodles, as warmth spread from our stomachs through our bodies. It felt like a world away from the frozen outside. After the meal, I walked to the bunker's observation port, and looked out. My heart sank. The fields and low houses that used to be were now completely buried under thick snow and ice. A pure white world stretching as far as I could see. The wind whipped snow powder fiercely. Tree branches had turned into icicles. In the distance, I could see frozen figures by the roadside, and a few staggering, oddly shaped creatures covered in ice but still wandering aimlessly, sometimes lunging at stuff to bite. Those were the cases of abnormal human behavior the news talked about, the early form of the apocalypse's zombies. What was once a land of the living had now become a true white hell. Meanwhile, the Davis villa in the city was already in dire straits. The extreme cold knocked out the power grid. The entire villa area lost power. The central air conditioning became useless. The diesel generator only had a small amount of fuel. It ran out quickly. The whole villa became an icy prison. Chloe wrapped herself in a thick mink coat and curled up on the sofa. Her teeth chattered non-stop. Her hands and feet were already purple from the cold. But she still took out her phone. The signal was intermittent. She forced herself to post a social media update, with a photo of her freezing red face. The caption was melodramatic and ridiculous.
Any handsome guy to warm me up. I'm freezing to death. Someone save me.
Susan was pacing anxiously nearby. She searched the villa only to find a few thin blankets. She wanted to burn wood for heat, but found the fireplace had been unused for years. There wasn't even kindling. Robert crouched in the corner smoking. His brow was furrowed. Looking at the room full of luxury goods and the meager amount of food, he was filled with regret. If only he hadn't listened to Chloe and stocked up on more survival supplies, they wouldn't have ended up like this. But now, regret was useless. Inside the bunker, the adoptive father was checking the generator's fuel reserves. The adoptive mother was organizing the vegetables in the dimension, planning to make a stir-fry for lunch. I leaned against the vent of the climate control system, watching the frozen scene outside the observation window. I had mixed feelings. In my past life, I froze to death on the streets in this cold. But this time, I could stay in a warm bunker and live peacefully with my adoptive parents. The extreme cold not only froze the world, but also completely widened the gap between my fate and the Davis families. Their extravagance and ignorance had already paved their own path to destruction. When night fell, the temperature outside continued to drop. Roars and ice cracks filled the air. We closed the observation window, shutting out all the noise from outside. The lights inside the bunker were soft and bright. The adoptive mother made some sweet soup. It was steaming hot. This frozen apocalypse, for us, was not only a test but also a new beginning to protect each other. Day 2 of the frozen apocalypse. Inside the bunker, it's warm and cozy. My adoptive father brings out the radio communication equipment he had stashed. He sets it on the low table by the fire. He had an old army buddy get it for him. He said after the apocalypse, communication is cut off.
The radio is the only way to get bits of news from outside and to determine the safe zones.
The three of us sit around the fire. My adoptive father adjusts the equipment. Amid the crackling static, occasionally, muffled voices break through. He patiently teaches my adoptive mother and me to identify frequencies and send simple signals. Every skill we learn gives us a better chance of survival in the apocalypse. In the afternoon, my adoptive father takes me to an open area in the bunker's basement. He brings out the crossbow bolts we had stored.
Guns are too loud. They attract zombies. Crossbow bolts are silent and accurate. They're good for close-range defense.
He shows me how to hold the crossbow, aim, and pull the trigger. He corrects the angle of my wrist.
He keeps telling me to aim for the vital spots and not to waste bolts.
I try shooting at the distant target. At first, I miss again and again, but with my adoptive father's guidance, I gradually get the hang of it. When my first bolt hits the bullseye, my adoptive mother walks over with warm water. She hands it to me with a smile. Take a break before practicing more. Don't tire your arm out. My adoptive mother is also holding a needle and thread and a torn-down jacket. She sits on a low stool in the corner and starts mending. As her nimble fingers move, the rips are mended with neat stitches. The fire crackles. Occasionally, weak signals come through the radio. The sound of my panting from crossbow practice, and the soft whisper of needle and thread, all these sounds blend together into a quiet comfort. Surprisingly, it feels more peaceful than any time before the apocalypse. I watch my adoptive parents, each focused on their own tasks, their expressions calm and peaceful. My heart is filled with gratitude. This warmth of supporting each other in desperate times is the most precious side of humanity. It's something the Davis family will never understand about the essence of survival. Back in the city, the Davis villa was already a living hell. The bone-chilling cold still hadn't let up. The zombies, acting weird, tracked the sound of voices into the villa. Roars, screams, glass breaking one after another. The once glamorous mansion was now a zombie hunting ground. The front door of the Davis villa didn't hold out long before the zombies smashed through. Susan was so terrified she collapsed to the floor. Robert grabbed a vase nearby and swung it wildly, but it couldn't stop the zombies from closing in. Chloe was scared out of her mind. She scrambled into the bedroom, locked the door, and shook uncontrollably. She didn't even dare to cry out loud. Hands trembling, she pulled out her phone. The signal was cutting in and out. But instead of calling for help, she opened Chattersphere and posted an update, with a selfie showing her tear-streaked face. Her caption was dripping with melodrama. So scary. The villa is full of monsters. Is anyone coming to save me? I need protection. She refreshed the page, hoping someone would reply. Someone would come to save her. But she forgot everyone was too busy trying to survive. Her so-called rich friends were already in over their heads. A zombie was pounding on the bedroom door. The heavy thuds made Chloe flinch with every hit. She hid under the bed, staring at the luxury goods all around the room, and suddenly remembered how Harper had left without looking back. For the first time, a flicker of regret crossed her mind. If only she hadn't been so obsessed with wasting money. If only she had stocked up on supplies with Robert, maybe she wouldn't be so utterly alone and helpless right now. But the thought barely lasted a second. She still clung to her phone, fantasizing someone would brave the storm for her, completely unaware that in the apocalypse, only yourself and reliable companions are the true support. As night fell, my adoptive father and I were able to pick up scattered conversations from nearby survivors on the radio. We learned that zombies had taken over many nearby neighborhoods. My adoptive mother cooked a pot of potato stew. The cold-resistant potatoes from the dimension had soaked up all the meat flavor. The three of us sat together to eat.
My adoptive father said from now on we had to practice shooting crossbow bolts every day, set up the radio, and defend our bunker.
I nodded. I looked out the observation window at the still frozen world. I knew deep down that the trials of the apocalypse had only just begun, and the good and evil in human nature would become sharper in desperation. Just after dawn, a violent pounding on the door shattered the bunker's silence, accompanied by the low, guttural moans of zombies. It came through the thick glass door. My heart tightened. I instinctively reached for my crossbow bolts. This was the first time since the apocalypse that zombies had gotten so close to our bunker. My adoptive father immediately stood up. He signaled for me and my adoptive mother to stay on the second basement level. While he grabbed the logging axe from the corner, he checked the situation through the observation window by the vent.
It's an evolved zombie that broke through the yard fence. It's ramming the old house's front door.
My adoptive father's voice was steady, but his eyes showed caution. This zombie was faster than any we'd observed before. It was covered in thin ice, but it didn't slow it down at all. Its rotting hands slammed against the wooden door again and again. Fine cracks were already showing in the door panels. My adoptive father didn't hesitate. He quietly pushed open the blast door of the ground-level entrance. Using the ice wall in the yard for cover, he sneaked around behind the zombie. I held my breath at the observation port. I saw my adoptive father grip the logging axe. Seizing the moment as the zombie turned, he swung with all his might. The axe blade buried into its skull. The zombie let out a piercing shriek. Its limbs twitched a few times, then it collapsed in the snow. It was soon covered by new falling snow. That was my adoptive father's first kill, and our first direct zombie assault. He stood there catching his breath. But his eyes grew even more determined. After cleaning up the traces, my adoptive father returned to the bunker. We immediately held a family meeting.
This zombie moved faster. That means they'll only get harder to deal with as they evolve. My adoptive father sat at the table. His tone was serious. We need to reinforce the outer defenses immediately. Replace the wooden yard fence with steel mesh, and install a door barricade behind the main gate. Also set up rotating watch shifts. We can't afford to be careless.
My adoptive mother and I nodded. My adoptive mother clutched her clothes, but her voice was firm.
I can help too. I'll keep watch during the day while you two reinforce the fence.
I remembered the emergency alarm we had stored. I quickly went to the storage room on the first basement level to get it. Mom, let me show you how to use this. If you spot a zombie approaching, just press the red button and it'll trigger the alarm. It's loud enough. We'll hear it even from the basement. I walked my adoptive mother through using the alarm, explaining how to trigger it and turn it off. We practiced a few times, until she could do it in her sleep. My adoptive mother clipped the alarm to her belt, like a serious student.
Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on the door. I won't let any zombies near.
The three of us had clear roles, not a hint of panic. In the face of despair, our unspoken understanding became our strongest defense. Meanwhile, the Davis villa in the city was already swarmed by zombies. A dozen zombies prowled outside the villa. Their rotting bodies slammed against the door. Their roars rose and fell. The whole villa trembled slightly. Susan and Robert huddled in a corner of the couch, hardly daring to breathe. Only a few packs of food were left. They even had to ration their water. But Chloe, still lost in her own little world, she hid behind the curtains, covering her mouth while screaming and holding up her phone to film. And she still remembered to fix her hair for the camera. In the video, her face was an exaggerated mask of terror. In the background, zombie roars were clearly audible. She added a super dramatic caption. Posted the Doomsday Survival vlog on TikTok. Day 1, surrounded by monsters. So scared. Someone save me. She even purposely slowed down the footage to capture the zombies outside the window, hoping to get attention with this video. Seeing this, Robert was shaking with rage, but didn't dare to yell, terrified of drawing more zombies. Susan hugged her daughter, crying, and begged her to stop filming, but Chloe just shoved her away, annoyed. Views are the only thing that can save us now. What if someone sees the video and actually comes to rescue us? She had no clue that in the apocalypse, no one would risk their life for a clickbait video. By dusk, we'd swapped the wooden fence in the yard for steel mesh, installed a heavy door barricade behind the gate, also buried makeshift warning devices around the yard. Mom was at her guard post, alarm in hand, staring intently outside the gate. Dad was checking the generator fuel, making sure the climate control system and security equipment were running properly. I was cleaning the crossbow bolts, restocking our supply. Night fell, Zombie roars echoed in the distance. But thanks to our joint efforts, our bunker was getting stronger. The afternoon after we finished reinforcing the defenses, my adoptive mother suddenly set off the alarm. A sharp sound broke the bunker's silence. Some strangers were dismantling the steel mesh in the yard. My adoptive mother's voice was tense, but still calm. My adoptive father and I grabbed our weapons and raced to the observation port. We saw 4 ragged thugs, smashing the fence with axes and crowbars, their eyes fixed greedily on the Smith family's old house. Obviously, they'd sensed there were supplies here, and came to test and attack us. They were local thugs trying to loot in the confusion. My adoptive father quickly assessed the situation
and said in a low voice, "Harper, guard the east observation port. Use crossbow bolts to hold them off. I'll go to the ground entrance and secure the blast door to prevent them from breaking through the mesh and entering. Your mum stays on the second basement level. Keep a close eye on their movements and report back anytime."
Once the roles were assigned, we jumped into action. I raised the crossbow and aimed at the lead thug. Remembering my adoptive father's lesson about aiming for vital points, I steadied my wrist and pulled the trigger. The bolt hit his arm perfectly. He screamed and fell into the snow. The other thugs panicked. Another thug tried to go around the fence to break the mesh. My adoptive father took the chance to push open the blast door and charged out with the logging axe. Using the ice wall for cover, he smashed the other's crowbar. The clang of metal was especially sharp in the snow. My adoptive mother reported from the basement in real time. 2 more are circling around the west side. I spun around. I aimed for one of their knees. I fired a second arrow. I yelled for my adoptive father to get inside. My adoptive father quickly ducked back into the yard. He slammed the gate shut and braced it. Then I fired a third arrow. It hit the last thug in the shoulder. The 4 thugs were either wounded or fled. They soon vanished into the snowy landscape, leaving only a few drops of blood, quickly covered by the falling snow. We didn't let our guard down. My adoptive father went out to check the fence to make sure there were no gaps. He also cleaned up the scene. Only then did he finally relax and return to the bunker. My adoptive mother was already busy in the kitchen. Smiling, she said, "We won the first battle. We need to celebrate." She pulled out the freshly harvested cold-resistant potatoes from the dimension, and a few plump free-range chickens. She quickly got to work. Soon, the aroma of chicken and potato stew filled the entire underground bunker. During dinner, my adoptive father put a piece of chicken on my plate. His face beamed with approval.
"Harper, your aim was incredible today. All 3 arrows hit their marks. You didn't give them a chance to get near the gate."
I smiled and looked down. I felt a huge sense of accomplishment. Thankfully, I had practiced a lot with my adoptive father before, so it paid off in the real fight. My adoptive mother kept refilling our bowls. When the family sticks together, there's nothing we can't overcome. The warm chicken soup went down my throat, washing away the fatigue after the battle, and made the bunker feel even cozier. Meanwhile, Chloe in the Davis villa was still trying to keep up her so-called elegance. Hiding behind the curtain gap, she secretly filmed the zombies wandering outside with her phone. The camera deliberately avoided her frozen purple hands and feet and the messy room. Focusing only on the zombies, she wrote a caption and posted it, the screen flickering. Even surrounded by monsters, I got to stay calm and make it to the end with grace. She also replied to concerned followers in the comments, lying that the house was well stocked, warm, and safe. She even staged a photo of the last half loaf of bread on the table. Susan watched her daughter fooling herself, crying from worry. She urged her to find a way to get supplies. "Don't bother me. Just watch. Someone's coming soon," she said. Night fell. We reinforced the weak spots of the fence and extended the night guard shifts. My adoptive father checked the crossbow bolts and alarms.
He said gravely, "The thug gang won't come just once. We need to be more careful from now on."
I nodded in agreement, looking at the thriving crops and the flock of chickens in the dimension, and then at my adoptive parents' determined faces. I felt really confident. This first battle of the bunker not only repelled the thugs, but also made us realize that guarding together with all our hearts is what we need most in this apocalypse. Morning after the first bunker fight, my adoptive mother was by the dimensional chicken coop. She found a dozen warm, fresh eggs. The 3 of us counted them in a bamboo basket. Our soft laughter felt like a rare slice of home in the apocalypse. My adoptive mother kept a few for breakfast. The rest went into the storage cabin. By day, we took turns on watch and maintenance. While my adoptive father was tuning the radio, he'd occasionally pick up desperate distress signals from survivors. Our hearts ached for them. But we knew in the apocalypse, you look out for yourself first. We couldn't risk going out. Meanwhile, at the Davis villa surrounded by zombies, Chloe Davis was still flaunting her wealth online. Even now, she dug out her last half bottle of wine and some jewelry for a photo shoot, claiming she had plenty of supplies and a cozy home, covering up how desperate things really were. Desperate for attention, faking glamour, her showing off finally backfired. A nearby thug gang they lived by robbery stumbled across her posts. Seeing her flaunt luxuries even in the apocalypse, they figured the Davis family had a huge stash. So they grabbed their weapons and headed for the villa. Back at the bunker, my adoptive mother made steamed egg custard. As we sat down to eat, my adoptive father suddenly said, on the radio,
"Thugs in the city have targeted the rich family showing off. Something bad's gonna happen."
My heart skipped a beat. I instantly thought of Chloe Davis but felt nothing, her own choice. She'd have to pay the price for flaunting her wealth. Night fell. Gunshots and screams rang out in the distance, along with Chloe's desperate cries. Soon drowned out by zombie moans, we shut the observation window, blocking out the noise. My adoptive mother ladled me a bowl of hot soup. "Don't think about what's out there. Just focus on keeping our bunker safe." I looked at my adoptive parents and the warm bowl of soup, and I felt so grateful for this safe haven, even in the midst of despair. The wind and snow raged late into the night. At the guard post, my adoptive mother found 3 people huddled outside the yard: Robert Davis, Susan Davis, and Chloe Davis. They were covered in snow. Their clothes were tattered. Clearly, they had escaped the zombie siege on foot. Gone was their former glamour. Only misery and panic remained. Robert noticed movement at the observation port. He struggled, pounding on the steel mesh. He hoarsely begged me to open the door and let them in from the snow. Susan sobbed, confessing her past favoritism. She pleaded with me to save Chloe, who was freezing. But Chloe still acted entitled. She scolded me for leaving them to die. I looked at their hypocritical faces. My heart turned cold. I raised my hand and shut the observation port. "Back then, you chose Chloe and called it even with me. I won't open the door." Robert cursed in fury.
He accused her of being heartless.
Those blood ties were severed long ago when he pushed Harper out of the villa. My adoptive mother's heart softened for a moment. She wanted to hand out some supplies, but my adoptive father firmly stopped her.
They abandoned Harper back then. Now they're only begging because they have no other choice. Saving them will only bring trouble. This is the path they chose. They need to face the consequences.
My adoptive mother watched the crying outside the door. In the end, she gave up the idea. The pleas outside gradually turned into curses. Chloe shrieked threats, but they were no match for the biting cold. The 3 finally left in despair. They hid in an abandoned car to escape the snow. Inside the car, it was bitterly cold. Chloe snatched the last heat pack, complaining that her parents were useless, completely ignoring that they were shivering. Inside the bunker, my adoptive mother boiled hot ginger tea to warm us up. The 3 of us sat around the stove. My adoptive father checked the radio. My adoptive mother mended clothes. I polished the crossbow bolts. No matter how fierce the storm outside, it couldn't disturb the peace of this little haven. This cry for help only strengthened our resolve to protect each other. The 3 Davis family members trudged back to the villa through the blizzard, already half frozen, barely able to push open the broken door. Inside the villa, it was barely better than outside. The fire in the fireplace had long gone out, leaving only cold ashes. A desperate smell of mold filled the air. Supplies were running low, and the last pack of survival biscuits was finished yesterday. Susan huddled in the corner, her lips chapped, too weak to speak. Robert leaned against the icy wall, gasping, his eyes numb. He tried to find something to burn for warmth, searched the ground floor, and found only a few rotten planks, which when lit gave a weak flame, barely enough to fend off the chill.
Water. Is there any water?
Susan's voice was as faint as a mosquito's. Humph! Robert was about to answer when he caught sight of Chloe, her back to them, crouched in the corner of the sofa, clutching something tightly, making faint chewing sounds.
"Chloe, what are you eating?"
Robert's voice carried a hint of hope as he walked over quickly. Chloe froze in terror, hastily hiding what she held behind her, her eyes darting. "And nothing, just some crumbs." Her panic made Robert suspicious, so he grabbed her wrist and pried it open. There lay half a biscuit wrapped in oil paper, still with crumbs from her mouth.
"Biscuits? You've been hoarding biscuits."
Robert's eyes instantly turned bloodshot, a mix of anger and despair. He remembered how over the past few days, the whole family had been eating dirt and swallowing snow to stave off hunger, and Susan had even fainted twice from dehydration, while his beloved daughter of over a decade had been secretly hoarding food for herself. A fierce argument between father and daughter. Suddenly, loud banging on the door and hoarse shouts. It's the thug gang that's been stalking them. 7 or 8 thugs with steel pipes and machetes chase after them. They smash through the door and pour in instantly. The leader scans the messy living room. His eyes lock onto the supplies in the corner. He viciously orders his gang to loot. Robert tries to stop them, but a thug kicks him down. Susan cowers in the corner, too scared to even call for help loudly. Chloe screams in fear, but she still yells with a spoiled princess attitude.
My dad is Robert Davis. If you touch me, you'll regret it.
The thugs just burst out laughing. The leader grabs her hair and slaps her. Still acting like a spoiled princess in the apocalypse, the pain shatters Chloe's illusions. She covers her face and wails. She doesn't dare to act arrogant anymore. 2 thugs reach for the last pack of survival biscuits. Robert lunges at them, grabbing their legs. Susan also rushes over to shield the supplies. Even when pushed and beaten, they won't let go. But Chloe watches her parents being beaten and takes the chance to crawl toward the villa panic room. It's the emergency hideout that Robert prepared. She trembles as she enters the code. Then she locks the door from inside, shutting out her parents' screams and the thugs' shouts completely. All she feels is the relief of having survived. Meanwhile, inside the Smith bunker, it's warm and cozy. My adoptive father pulls out a vintage cassette player and tapes. He suggests a simple home karaoke. My adoptive mother picks an old song and hums softly. My adoptive father and I clap along. The fire crackles. Singing and laughter chase away the gloom of the apocalypse. Occasionally, the radio picks up chaotic signals from the city. Faint cries and screams can be heard. Must be the Davis villa. My adoptive father turns off the radio and whispers a reminder.
Don't worry about outside. We'll protect our home.
We huddle together, drinking the sweet soup my adoptive mother made. No matter how fierce the storm outside is, it can't blow away the warmth inside the bunker. The thug gang took all the supplies and left, leaving Robert and his wife barely alive on the ground. Chloe hid in the panic room for a long time. She only came out when she was sure it was safe. Seeing her parents severely injured, she felt nothing. She only focused on getting gold bars from the safe. She completely ignored their pleas for help. After those thugs left, the villa was left in bitter cold and deadly silence. Robert Davis had broken ribs, and each breath was pure agony. Susan Davis was frozen stiff too. They huddled on the floor, too weak to even move. They stared toward the secret room, hoping Chloe would come out to save them. But what came out was her figure, loaded with gold bars and ready to run.
Chloe, please save us.
Susan Davis screamed with her last strength. Chloe Davis turned back and gave a cold glance, her tone dripping with disgust.
I can barely keep myself alive. Blame yourselves for being so useless.
Without another word, she dashed out the door, not looking back, leaving her parents' cries to be swallowed by the storm. Robert Davis watched her walk away without hesitation and spat blood. Trembling, he pulled out his broken phone. The recording was faint but full of remorse.
Harper, Dad was wrong. I shouldn't have been partial. I shouldn't have pushed you away for Chloe. I raised a damn ungrateful wretch.
Before the recording ended, his hand fell limp, and he was gone. Susan Davis held his cold body tightly and thought of me, who had shut her out. Her fingers clenched until her knuckles turned white. She whispered I'm sorry as her body grew stiff. She remained frozen, unable to flee. Outside, Chloe Davis was quickly surrounded by a zombie horde. The gold bars slowed her down, and her thick coat was ripped off. Her blood-curdling screams were swallowed by the storm. In the Smith bunker, my adoptive mother was knitting me a thick sweater. The glow of the fire fell on her face, making it look so warm. My adoptive father was repairing the generator, making sure the climate control system was running. I sat nearby, helping my adoptive mother organize the yarn. Soft old songs drifted from the radio. Each of us had our own task, and it felt safe. As night fell, my adoptive father said the zombie horde was heading toward the city, so we were safe for now. I leaned against my adoptive parents and suddenly understood that true belonging isn't about bloodline, but about the people who have your back when things go south. The Davis family's story has ended, but our safe life in the apocalypse is just getting started. After the Davis family fell, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Late at night, I sat by the observation window. I took off the jade pendant. A tear fell onto the jade pendant. It seeped into the pendant along its veins. Suddenly, a blinding green light burst forth, pulling me into the dimension. Inside, the fertile black soil, chicken coop, and magic spring was still there. To the west, a new area covered by a light barrier had appeared. After the light barrier dissipated, a minimalist medical lab came into view. An experiment table, glassware, and drug synthesis blueprints all there. The screen showed it can synthesize cold medicine, hemostatic medicine, and other basic medicines. Most raw materials are dimensional herbs and magic spring water. Excited, I called my adoptive parents over. They were both shocked by the lab.
With this, we won't have to worry about medicine shortages anymore.
My adoptive father carefully studied the blueprints. He said happily, and my adoptive mother took my hand, both caring and relieved. It's all thanks to my sweetie, whose abilities triggered the evolution. I threw myself into my adoptive mother's arms. I sobbed as my adoptive father gently patted my back.
He comforted me. It's all over. We still have each other.
The three of us hugged in the dimension. The magic spring water gurgled. The lab indicator lights blinked softly. The warmth dispelled all sadness. My adoptive father tried to synthesize hemostatic medicine using herbs and magic spring water. As the light red liquid flowed into the glass bottle, my adoptive mother's eyes reddened. The next morning, we split the work to organize the herbs, and learned how to operate the equipment. At breakfast, my adoptive father smiled and said,
The more skills you have, the more confidence you'll have.
Outside, the wind and snow continued, but the warmth inside the bunker grew stronger because of the dimensional evolution. Chloe Davis somehow survived. When she was rescued by a group of fleeing refugees, she lost her gold bars. All she had left was half a torn padded jacket. She was barely surviving in a suburban shantytown. In the shantytown, freezing and starving, zombies roamed. She was bullied and abused. Her former arrogance turned into a dark ruthlessness. Late that night, Chloe came again to the Smith family's old house. She deliberately stepped barefoot into the knee-deep snow, letting the biting cold frost bite her feet. Soon, they became red, swollen, and ulcerated, seeping blood and pus. She wrapped her torn jacket tightly and curled up behind a low wall, waiting for dawn, playing the victim for sympathy. As dawn broke, her adoptive mother was checking the surveillance. Seeing Chloe's pitiful state, in the surveillance, Chloe lifted her mud-covered face.
Zombies are chasing me. My feet are frostbitten. Mom and Dad are
Her
gone.
adoptive mother looked at her ulcerated feet, and her heart softened. She was about to go out, but remembered Chloe's arrogance that snowy night when she begged with my adoptive father. The Davis family's favoritism held up some hemostatic grass inside the bunker, teaching me to identify it.
This grass mixed with magic spring water makes the best hemostatic medicine. Remember its look, so you can pick it on patrol too. I nodded in agreement. Father and daughter worked together, very efficiently.
When we came out of the dimension, my adoptive mother, with a complicated expression, mentioned running into Chloe. Her tone was full of conflict.
She must be faking it, trying to sneak in and loot supplies. Don't be soft-hearted.
My adoptive father's face darkened. I also advised my adoptive mother not to be fooled. My adoptive mother nodded silently, but couldn't hide the pity in her eyes. At dinner, my adoptive father deliberately changed the subject, talking about how I fell from a jujube tree when I was a kid, clutching the dates and refusing to let go.
Later, while applying medicine, you still acted tough, then wanted to climb again.
My adoptive mother laughed, and added details. As the three of us laughed together around the table, the warmth of the soup dispelled all the gloom. Meanwhile, behind the low wall, Chloe, having received no help, glared venomously toward the Smith family's old house. She rubbed her frostbitten feet, a fierce look in her eyes. Since the soft approach doesn't work, I'll use another way. I'm going to break into that bunker and take back everything that belongs to me. That night, the adoptive mother tossed and turned, couldn't sleep. Chloe's frostbitten feet and desperate pleas kept haunting her. The pity in her eyes sprouted like a new shoot, growing stronger despite her efforts to suppress it. She knew Chloe had cursed her out, always scheming, but thinking about how she was the child she carried for 10 months, she couldn't bring herself to turn a blind eye. Before dawn, the adoptive mother quietly got up, took out some steamed buns and frostbite ointment from the dimension, and unraveled an old sweater overnight to knit a light fleece vest and wrapped it in a cloth bundle. She avoided the adoptive father's and my room, carried a bamboo basket, tiptoed out the door, and headed toward the low wall. She ultimately decided to take Chloe some supplies. I happened to catch this scene when I got up to use the bathroom. My heart tightened, and I quietly followed her. I watched her hide the cloth bundle on a low tree branch, then pause and gaze for a moment, before turning back with a heavy heart, returning to the bunker. I told her all about the bundle, my voice anxious. Mom, why are you still so stubborn? Last time in the snow, she even cursed us out, and now she's playing pitiful, just trying to trick us into giving her supplies. The adoptive father hurried over, his face serious, but mixed with helplessness. He looked at the adoptive mother's reddened eyes, didn't yell, but gently said to Martha,
I know how you feel. But in the apocalypse, you can't trust anyone. This will only make her push for more. If she latches onto us, we'll be in deep trouble.
The adoptive mother twisted the hem of her clothes, her fingers turning white. After a long silence, finally, tears fell. Her voice choked up, filled with an indescribable pain. I know you're worried, and I remember how cruel she was. But Arthur, Harper, she's my own flesh and blood. No matter how bad she is, I can't watch her freeze and starve to death. I'll only do it a few times. She wiped her tears, her eyes determined yet pleading. Just give her some food and medicine so she can survive, and stay far away from us. I don't need her gratitude. I just want to ease my own conscience. The adoptive father and I exchanged a glance. In the end, we couldn't change her mind. We just told her to stay safe, and to make it quick each time. Over the next 2 days, the adoptive mother secretly delivered supplies every morning and returned, saying Chloe just took the stuff and left, playing docile. The adoptive father and I were still uneasy, but could only rely on the surveillance to keep an eye on the adoptive mother's safety, not thinking much of it. And behind the low wall, Chloe, each time she took the supplies, would crouch behind the tree and sneer, a smug look in her eyes.
Idiot, she caved. The Smith's bunker and supplies will be mine sooner or later.
She fiddled with the frostbite ointment, and pulled out an old phone she had hidden, secretly contacting the thug gang that had been eyeing the Smiths, waiting for the right moment to strike. It was just getting light. Her adoptive mother, carrying the cotton clothes she'd sewn overnight and medicine, went back to the little tree alone. She placed the cloth bag by the tree root and softly called out for Chloe. Chloe was still in rags, rushing over with a face full of remorse. The 20th of June 2023, crying and confessing her mistakes. She looked so pitiful, so miserable. Her adoptive mother's heart finally softened. She passed the cloth bag and told her to rest up and heal. They'd part ways in peace. But Chloe suddenly dropped to her knees, gripping her adoptive mother's hand tight, begging through tears for a hug, saying she just wanted to feel a mother's love, even once. Her adoptive mother hesitated a moment, but still bent down and hugged her. My adoptive father and I had just let out a sigh of relief, watching from the monitor, when suddenly it all went wrong. Chloe whipped out a syringe from behind her back, using the hug as a cover, and jammed it hard into her adoptive mother's lower back. The anesthetic kicked in instantly. Her adoptive mother's body went limp, her eyes wide with disbelief. Right before she blacked out, she mouthed "run," in the direction of the bunker, and then collapsed into the snow. "Mom!" I screamed and lunged to rush out, but my adoptive father held me back tight.
There are thugs out there. It's a trap.
Before he could finish, Tyson and several armed thugs burst into view, roughly tied her adoptive mother up and propped her against the tree. Chloe wrapped herself in the cotton coat and tried to curry favor. The thugs eyed the Smith family's old house greedily. I clung to my adoptive father, sobbing, a fierce resolve rising through my grief. My adoptive father swallowed his rage, dragged me along to shore up the defenses, and took inventory of the weapons.
Stay calm. First, hold the bunker. Then we'll find a chance to rescue your mom. The blast door slid shut slowly.
I gripped the crossbow bolts tight, my eyes filled with nothing but resolve. Chloe and the thugs, I'll make them pay 100 times over. Behind the blast door, my knuckles are white from gripping the crossbow bolt. I'm going to save her. My tone is firm and unquestionable. I grab the anti-slip boots from the corner and put them on. I quietly slip out through the emergency exit on the side of the bunker. The cold wind, laced with blood, slaps my face. I hurry in the direction the thugs fled, as seen on the monitor. Footprints of different depths mark the snow. Each step takes me closer to unknown danger. The edge of the suburban shantytown. The density of wandering zombies has clearly increased. I crouch low, hiding behind a pillar of ice. With my senses sharpened by the dimension's magic spring water, I avoid several zombie hordes. I am just about to sneak deeper into the shantytown. A cold metal touch presses against my lower back. A low male voice rings out.
Don't move. Hands behind your head.
My heart tightens. Instinctively, I reach for the short knife at my waist, but he subdues me faster. As I turn, I realize I'm surrounded by 3 people in camouflage, holding guns. The leader is tall and upright, with piercing eyes and sharp brows. The rank on his shoulder shows his authority. His rifle is always aimed at my vital points. His eyes are wary, but not savage.
Military recon team. I'm Captain Caleb Wright.
The leader shows his military ID.
The ID number and seal are clear as day. You came alone into a zombie-dense area. What are you after?
My taut nerves loosen. I know I've run into official forces. I immediately speak up. My mom was kidnapped by the thugs. They're hiding in this shantytown. I'm going to save her. Caleb raises an eyebrow. He scans my gear. The custom crossbow bolt tactical pack and the dimensional jade pendant at my waist bring a flicker of surprise to his eyes.
That gang is our primary target to track down. After the cold wave hit, they've been looting supplies and taking hostages, doing all sorts of evil.
He holsters his gun, and his tone turns somber.
We can cooperate. The military will engage the thugs head-on. You help us locate the hostages, how about that?
I'm overjoyed. I quickly nod. I know. Their hideout is an abandoned brick house. Chloe Davis used to operate around there. Caleb signals his men to keep watch. When he looks at me again, there's a hint of approval in his voice.
Barging in here alone with that gear, you've got guts. He quickly assigns tasks. 2 men circle around to block the brick house exits.
This is to prevent the thugs from escaping. I follow him for a frontal assault. I use my knowledge of the terrain to lead the way. Before we set out, Caleb hands me a military knife.
The crossbow bolts are for long range. This is for close defense. Remember, stay close to me and don't rush off.
We move quickly through the snow, keeping low. Caleb's movements are swift and efficient. He takes out approaching zombies silently. He's clearly battle-hardened. I follow closely behind. Relying on my knowledge of the shantytown obstacles, I guide the team to avoid traps. We get closer to the abandoned brick house. Vaguely, we can hear thugs shouting, and I hear my adoptive mother's faint coughing. My heart tightens. I grip the crossbow bolts in my hand. The rescue mission officially begins. Caleb signals the team to hold position. He follows. I press against the brick wall. I follow the sound deeper inside. The ground floor is littered with thug junk. 2 guards lean against a pillar, smoking and chatting, totally off guard. Caleb's eyes harden. He darts out first. He covers one guy's mouth. Then he puts him in a chokehold. I shoot a crossbow bolt at the same time. It hits the other guard right in the knee. Both drop instantly. Not a single sound the whole time. We cross the messy hall. The basement entrance is covered by a rotten wooden board. The adoptive mother's gasps and Chloe's shouts, coming from below. I lift the board. A damp, cold stench hits my face. In the dungeon, the adoptive mother is tied to a stone pillar with thick ropes. Her clothes are stained with blood. She's barely breathing. Her eyes show exhaustion. Chloe holds a short knife. She frantically pressures the adoptive mother. Her eyes are full of wild greed. Tell me the Smith bunker password. Where did you hide the supplies? If you don't talk, you won't see the sun tomorrow. She presses harder. The adoptive mother winces in pain. But she grits her teeth, her eyes firm, refusing to speak. In your dreams, the adoptive mother's voice is hoarse and broken. Every word causes her immense pain. Yet she keeps her back straight. Chloe is furious. She raises the knife to strike again. But the adoptive mother suddenly looks up. She sees me through the dungeon entrance. Panic flashes in her eyes. Then it turns to determination. She bites her lower lip hard. Blood trickles from the corner of her mouth. With her last bit of strength, her lips move with difficulty. No sound comes out, but she mouths 3 words clearly. Don't worry about me. Tears blur my vision instantly. I grip my crossbow tight. I'm about to rush down, but Caleb holds me back. He quickly signals tactical movements. 2 team members circle around to block the dungeon exit. He and I charge in from the front. Caleb yells loudly, aiming his gun at Chloe. Chloe flinches in shock, but she doesn't let go. Instead, she presses the knife tighter against the adoptive mother. She backs away, screaming, "Stay back, one more move and I'll kill her." Chloe's blade glinted as it swung down. My heart tightened. All I could think was saving Mom. The jade pendant on my finger suddenly grew hot. A strange force surged through my body. In a flash of light, I teleported right in front of my mom. I grabbed Chloe's wrist tight. The blade stopped inches from my mom's neck. "How did you?" Chloe was stunned. Her grip loosened. Caleb behind me also widened his eyes, shock written all over his face. But he composed himself in an instant. He raised his gun at the thugs rushing over.
He barked, "Fire."
Gunshots rang through the dungeon. The stillness bought me a moment. I snatched the short knife and tossed it away. Using the momentum from the teleport, I untied my mom. I shielded her with my body. Magic spring water seeped from my fingertips. I gently dabbed it on the wound on her neck. To ease the pain for now, Caleb had already rushed to us. His rifle fired precise shots. 2 thugs dropped. Clean and efficient. The remaining thugs fought back. I focused my mind. I teleported behind one of them. I elbowed him hard in the back of the head. I worked with Caleb's fire to clear them out. In no time, the thugs in the dungeon were all taken down. Only Chloe remained, slumped on the floor, pale as a ghost. Just as we were on guard, Chloe went limp, closed her eyes, and fell, pretending to be unconscious. I let out a cold laugh. I picked up a pebble from the ground, and hit her right on the knee. Her shoulder twitched. Her eyelids fluttered involuntarily. Her act fell apart instantly. Caleb pinned her down. He looked at me with a complicated expression.
Teleportation.
I didn't deny the superpower. Helping my weak mom stand, I said firmly, "Let's get my mom out of here first." Sunlight streamed through the cracks in the brick house. Crisis averted for now, but the secret of my awakened superpower became an unspoken understanding between Caleb and me. The snowy road back was eerily quiet. My adoptive mother leaned on my shoulder, gasping weakly. Chloe was handcuffed behind her back by Caleb. She stumbled along behind us. Her torn padded jacket was still stained with mud and blood from the dungeon. Several times she tried to plead for mercy, but my cold glare stopped her. Back at the Smith bunker, Caleb led Chloe to a corner of the hall to guard her. He tactfully stepped outside to keep watch. This was a Smith family matter. It wasn't his place to interfere. My adoptive mother sat on a low stool and drank some magic spring water. After catching her breath, her gaze fell on Chloe, who was cowering in the corner. Pain and disappointment surged in her eyes. Chloe fell to her knees with a thud. Her knees hit the stone floor, making a dull sound. With tear-filled eyes, she crawled forward on her knees. She grabbed the hem of my adoptive mother's clothes. Her voice was choked and deliberately humble.
Mom, Dad. I was wrong. I was confused, egged on by thugs. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please give me another chance.
She kowtowed desperately. Her forehead quickly turned red. She kept mumbling confessions, but a glimmer of hope hid in her eyes. She tried to use blood ties to gain sympathy again. My adoptive mother trembled all over. She yanked her clothes back. Tears finally burst out. She shouted hoarsely,
"I gave you chances. Again and again, I gave you chances. I went against Harper and Arthur's objections. I secretly brought you food and medicine. But you chose to hurt me. You weren't just confused. You hate us from the bottom of your heart. You want to take everything from us."
These words pierced Chloe's disguise. She was stunned for a moment. Then she cried even harder. She turned to my adoptive father and pleaded desperately.
Dad, I know I was wrong. I will change from now on. I'll take care of you in your old age. Please don't kick me out. It's all zombies out there. If I go out, I'll die for sure.
Her adoptive father stood still, his face ashen and hard as iron. He was silent for a long time. All that was left in the hall was Chloe's wailing, and the adoptive mother's stifled sobs. I gripped my mom's hand and handed her a tissue. Not a shred of pity in my eyes. After a long moment, my dad turned and walked into the storage room. He took out a pack of survival biscuits, a few thick coats, and a small bottle of magic spring water, and set them heavily in front of Chloe. His voice was hoarse, but there was no room for argument.
These should last you a few days. Go find a place to live on your own. From now on, you are not my daughter. The Smith family has nothing to do with you from now on.
With that, he turned his face away, unwilling to look at Chloe again. There was nothing but cold finality in his eyes. Chloe looked at the stuff on the floor, then at the resolute adoptive parents. She suddenly stopped crying. All color drained from her face. She knew it was useless to beg. She shot me a nasty glare. Her eyes flashed with venom. But she didn't dare say a word. She grabbed the stuff and stumbled to her feet, rushing awkwardly toward the bunker exit. Caleb stepped forward, and after confirming she posed no threat, opened the blast door and let her leave. Then he turned to us and said,
I'll have my team watch her movements, so she doesn't come back and cause trouble.
My dad nodded in thanks. My mom leaned against me, finally letting all her emotions out, and sobbed quietly. I gently patted my mom's back, staring at the endless snowstorm outside, feeling a sense of relief. 3 days after Chloe left, the snowstorm finally stopped, leaving the world a vast expanse of pure white. Caleb's patrol knocked on the bunker door, and grimly told us that on a snowy slope 3 miles from the old house, they'd found a frozen body. When we got there with the patrol, Chloe was curled up in the snow, already gone. She was kneeling, head tilted up, facing the Smith bunker, eyes wide, but empty. She must have struggled in the storm for days, and finally, toward this place, the only place that ever gave her warmth, she used up her last strength. The adoptive mother stood there, speechless, tears silently falling, hitting the snow, turning to ice instantly. Her eyes held both pain and utter relief. Back at the bunker, the adoptive mother quietly found some memorial paper and matches, and lit them in the yard corner. In the flickering firelight, she fed the paper sheet by sheet, slow and heavy. No wailing, just a silent goodbye. The adoptive father stepped up gently, pulled her trembling shoulders into his arms, patting her back softly, offering support in silence. I stood there, watching the flames and the adoptive parents holding each other, my heart a mess of emotions. Chloe was destroyed by greed and selfishness, but this kneeling pose facing the bunker held her last longing for warmth. The paper burned to ashes, carried by the wind onto the white snow, like the final resting place of this resentment. Night fell. We closed the blast door, shutting out the world. In the chill, the warm stove and clothes wrapped around the 3 of us, the adoptive mother leaning on the adoptive father's shoulder, now calm. Chloe's been taken care of. But Caleb didn't leave with his team right away. That night, he avoided the patrol, and came to the Smith bunker alone. With a grave expression, he asked to talk to me alone. My adoptive father had concerns, but he still took my adoptive mother into the back room, leaving us sitting facing each other in the living room.
I came here today to tell you a military secret, Project Spark.
Caleb began, his tone serious and unquestionable.
After the apocalypse broke out, the global ecosystem collapsed, and zombies spread. The military has been looking for a force to turn the tide. To establish safe zones. To rebuild homes. That's the core of Project Spark.
He paused, his eyes falling on the jade pendant at my waist.
And your dimensional superpower is the key to the plan.
I was startled. I instinctively gripped my jade pendant. Caleb continued.
Your dimension has a magic spring and fertile soil, capable of growing cold-resistant crops, and can purify a medical area. It's the only complete ecological sample in the apocalypse. More importantly, your teleportation superpower can quickly transport supplies, and rescue survivors. It's an indispensable force for rebuilding the ecosystem and safe zones.
But I just want to protect my mom and dad, I replied in a low voice. Peace in the apocalypse is just too precious. I don't dare take risks lightly. Caleb's eyes showed no displeasure, only understanding.
I know what you're worried about. Until the safe zone is built, we won't force you to leave your family. But I hope you'll consider, your superpower can not only protect your small family, but also save more people who want to live like you.
The conversation drew my adoptive parents. They stood at the door, and happened to hear those words.
I turned to look at them.
My eyes full of hesitation. But my adoptive mother stepped forward first.
And took my hand, said gently, Sweetie.
Do what you think is right. It's safe for us to hold this bunker, but if we can give more people a way to survive, that's also a good thing.
My adoptive father nodded heavily, his tone firm.
Mom and Dad support you. Whatever you choose, we'll be right here with you. We'll always have your back.
They didn't hesitate at all, even knowing the road ahead was dangerous, and were willing to support my choice. This unconditional trust instantly chased away the hesitation in my heart. Caleb saw that, and a flicker of emotion crossed his eyes. He stood up and said solemnly, Don't worry.
We'll do everything to keep Mr. and Mrs. Smith safe. And I'll never let Harper end up in a hopeless situation. Once we've mapped the zombie distribution around here, we'll come get you and take you to a temporary safe zone.
After seeing Caleb off, the secret didn't weigh on the room. My adoptive mother turned and headed into the kitchen, saying with a smile, Sweetie, after all those scares, I'll make you some braised pork to settle your nerves. Your favorite kind. With that, she took fresh pork and seasonings out of the dimension, and got to work. The iron pot sizzled on the stove, and the aroma of the meat slowly filled the air, mingling with the fragrance of scallions and ginger, chasing away all the tension and worry. My adoptive father sat nearby polishing crossbow bolts, occasionally chatting with me about the safe zone, his tone full of anticipation. I leaned against the counter, watching my adoptive mother bustle about, the familiar meaty scent lingering in my nose, and suddenly I understood. No matter how many unknowns lay ahead, with my family's support, I had nothing to fear. That evening, 3 big bowls of braised pork were set on the table, glossy and rich, melting in the mouth. The 3 of us sat around the stove, eating the warm food, sharing heartfelt words. The military's secret, the dangers of the apocalypse, were all softened for a moment by the warmth of home. The next morning, my adoptive parents and I sat in the living room. We spread out the inventory of supplies from the dimension. Looking at the densely listed food and medicine, warm clothing, I took a deep breath. I said firmly, Mom and Dad, I want to donate half of our stock to help the military. Project Spark needs these. And so do more survivors. My adoptive mother nodded immediately. She reached out to touch the list. Mom supports you.
Supplies should be used where they're needed most.
My adoptive father gave an approving look too. He tapped his finger on the cold-resistant crops on the list.
These potatoes from the dimension are easy to store. Donating them can save a lot of people. We'll keep enough for ourselves. The rest goes to the military.
After finalizing the donation details, I contacted Caleb. Within half an hour, 3 military trucks roared up and parked in the open area outside the bunker. Soldiers lined up, ready. They looked solemn. An idea hit me. I moved half of the supplies out of the dimension. Cold-resistant potatoes, synthetic medicines, and thick cotton coats piled into a small mountain. The soldiers moved them quickly and orderly.
Their moves were swift and efficient. My adoptive father helped check and count. He kept reminding us to stack the medicines separately. He told them to handle them gently.
My adoptive mother brought a pot of hot ginger tea. She distributed it to the busy soldiers. The warmth in the cold wind was truly touching. Supplies are loaded. The morning sun has painted half the sky red. The convoy is about to head to the temporary safe zone. Caleb comes up to me. He pulls out a black satellite phone from his tactical pocket. And a shiny dog tag. He hands them to me solemnly.
This satellite phone works across regions. Don't worry about losing signal. The dog tag gets you into any military outpost along the way. It will keep you all safe.
His tone is steady. His fingertips pause slightly. A faint blush appears behind his ears. He lowers his voice.
Once I get the safe zone set up, I'll come back for you all.
I take the phone and dog tag. My fingertips touch his cool palm. My heart skips a beat for no reason. I just nod softly in agreement. The dog tag is engraved with Caleb's number and name. It feels heavy. It carries the unique sternness of a soldier. Caleb turns and jumps into the lead vehicle. He waves to us. The engine roars again. 3 trucks drive off one by one. On the snow-covered road, they leave 2 long tire tracks. They head toward Hope in the distance. We watch the convoy disappear over the horizon. Only then do we return to the bunker. Just as we enter, my adoptive mother mysteriously pulls me into the bedroom. From her sewing basket, she takes out a freshly sewn red pillowcase. The stitches are fine and neat. A small lotus flower is embroidered on the corner. The fabric is soft and thick. It's made from pure cotton stored in the dimension. She hands the pillowcase to me. She winks playfully at me. Her eyes are full of knowing smiles.
It's for you, so you can sleep well when you get to the safe zone. Red is lucky and keeps you warm.
I touch the soft pillowcase. My nose tingles. I instantly understand my adoptive mother's heart. My adoptive father leans on the doorframe, smiling, and adds,
Your mum stayed up half the night making it.
Firelight shines through the curtains, reddening the pillowcase, and warming my heart. I carefully fold the pillowcase. I put it in my backpack. This red is my family's love. It is also a hope for our reunion. In the following days, we reinforce the bunker and take inventory of remaining supplies, while quietly waiting for news from Caleb. The satellite phone occasionally picks up his brief messages. He reports the convoy is safe, cleared a small zombie horde along the way, and says construction of the temporary safe zone has begun. Every transmission fills us with more hope for the future. On the 10th morning after Caleb's convoy left, I pushed open the observation window at the bunker's vent. Surprisingly, I didn't feel the usual biting cold. The bitter wind had eased. The ice on the eaves was melting right before my eyes, dripping onto the snow, and splashing tiny droplets. My adoptive father walked out of the bunker with a thermometer. He came back a moment later.
The temperature's rising, he said gravely. It's -4 degrees now. That's 15 degrees higher than yesterday.
The warmth was just beginning to show, but danger was quietly building up. That afternoon, my adoptive mother at the guard post suddenly called out,
Harper! Arthur! Lots of zombies coming from the east. They're way faster than before.
We moved to the observation port and looked out. A dozen zombies, drawn by the smell of melting ice, shambled over. The thin ice on them had already melted. Though their steps were still unsteady, they seemed more aggressive. They kept slamming into the steel mesh fence around the yard, growling deeply. The warmer temperature was making them more active. My adoptive father immediately grabbed the crossbow bolts. I grabbed spare bolts from the dimension at the same time. Good thing we reinforced the fence earlier. We can hold them off for now. We three took turns standing guard, using the crossbow to keep them back. It took over an hour to drive off all the zombies that came near. Taking a break, I remembered Caleb's warning on the satellite phone from the day before. The rising temperature might cause zombie unrest. We need to watch out for other survivors. So I suggested reaching out to the few survivors on the radio. My adoptive father tuned the radio and broadcast an SOS signal. It wasn't long before we got a response. There are about a dozen survivors nearby, mostly old people, women, and children, hiding in an old village house. They're out of food and have no way to stay warm. They don't even have basic protection. After talking it over, we decided to bring them together and set up a mutual aid station. We picked the abandoned community center not far from the bunker. It's sturdy, and we can keep watch easily from there. The next morning, I pulled out a huge batch of cold-resistant potato seeds from the dimension. My adoptive father brought pre-sharpened tools for the wooden palisade. My adoptive mother made a big pot of hot ginger tea and steamed buns. We three headed to the abandoned community center. The survivors were already waiting at the entrance, eyes filled with wariness and hope. My adoptive father stepped up. He taught them hands-on how to build makeshift defense fences. I portioned the potato seeds into small bags and passed them out one by one. I patiently explained, these are cold-resistant varieties that will sprout with just water and grow fast to tide you over for now. Meanwhile, my adoptive mother passed out ginger tea and steamed buns to everyone. Watching the children wolf down the food, she quietly pulled out a few packs of survival biscuits from the dimension. She handed them to the elderly. A curious survivor asked where the potato seeds came from. I just vaguely said they were a special variety I'd stockpiled before. Take good care of them, and we'll come back and help. All day long, we were busy guiding the survivors to reinforce their homes and clearing small vegetable patches. As the sun set, the mutual aid station's defenses and planting areas were starting to take shape. The survivors finally wore long-lost smiles. Back at the bunker, my adoptive mother cooked up a pot of hot soup. The three of us sat around the stove, keeping warm. My adoptive father turned on the radio. He tuned it to the survivor frequency we'd recorded. Amidst the crackling static, voices came through, several times more than usual. There were contact signals from mutual aid stations in different areas, calls for missing family members, and people sharing tips on fighting zombies. The once silent frequency was gradually coming alive. Listen, more and more people are making it. My adoptive mother leaned on my adoptive father's shoulder, her eyes filled with relief. The voices on the radio rose and fell, and though still heavy with the exhaustion of the apocalypse, they radiated a stubborn vitality. The temperature's rising faster than I thought. The last bit of frost on the eaves has completely melted, dripping onto the stone slabs in the yard. The splashes feel warm and moist. Outside the yard, in the wasteland, a few green weeds have quietly sprung up. They sway gently in the wind. It's the first real trace of spring since the apocalypse. I go back and forth between the bunker and the aid station every day. I watch the potatoes the survivors planted sprouting new shoots. The contact signals on the radio are getting clearer. Even the air smells like new life. One afternoon, I'd just finished mending the fence for an old man at the station and got back to the bunker when I saw my adoptive father holding a telegram, with a smile he couldn't hide. My adoptive mother leaned in, her eyes full of excitement.
Harper, Caleb sent a telegram.
My adoptive father handed me the telegram. His tone was teasing me a bit. My heart skipped a beat. I took the telegram, unfolded it, just 2 short lines. The handwriting was bold and strong, unmistakably Caleb's. Northern Base is being rebuilt. I'll be back soon to get you all. Just those few words, but my cheeks went red instantly. I ran my fingers over the paper, my heart racing. Before I could speak, my adoptive parents turned and went into the storage room. They started rummaging through boxes. They were getting ready to head to the safe zone. I leaned against the doorframe, watching them hustle around. I felt a lump in my throat. We're social creatures. We've been on our own for months in the apocalypse. Once we reach the safe zone, we'll rebuild. Once the dimension evolved, the greenhouse area was already full of rich soil. The crops watered with magic spring water are growing great. The tomato vines I planted earlier have covered the trellis. Heavy fruit is hanging from the branches, bright red, giving off a tempting smell. My adoptive mother reached out and plucked a ripe tomato. She wiped it and held it to my mouth. The sweet and sour juice exploded in my mouth. A rare sweet treat in the apocalypse.
Look how good this tomato is.
My adoptive mother smiled as she surveyed the full greenhouse of fruit, her tone full of plans.
Save them all for when we get to the safe zone, and then we'll share them with Caleb. Then we'll grab a few free-range chickens from the dimension.
My adoptive father also walked in, and looking at the red tomatoes, added,
Pick some greens too, and make a pot of hot soup. Life's hard, but we gotta have something to look forward to.
I bit into the tomato, looking at the thriving greenhouse and my adoptive parents' smiling faces. My heart was full of certainty. This late spring not only brought the warmth of melting ice, but also the hope of reunion and being together. In this ruined apocalypse, it nurtures the gentlest hint of a normal life. The morning, the ice finally cracked through. A clear crack echoed from the river, thick ice shattered and drifted away with the current. Several water birds skimmed over the rippling surface. I was checking the potato sprouts at the mutual aid station's garden when the familiar roar of an off-road vehicle came from afar. It was Caleb. The military off-road vehicle broke through the mist. It stopped steadily outside the bunker gate. Caleb pushed open the door and stepped out, his camouflage uniform covered in dust. He had a shallow wound on his forearm. His face was travel-worn, yet he tightly held a bouquet of greenhouse-grown roses and lilies of the valley. The petals were fresh with dew. They were radiant in the apocalypse.
I'm back.
He strode forward quickly and handed the flowers to me. His fingertips were cool. Caleb bowed solemnly to my adoptive parents.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the northern base is stable. I'm here to take you there. From now on, we'll protect this home together.
My adoptive father patted him on the shoulder in approval. My adoptive mother also smiled and told us to take care of each other. We stood side by side on the revived land. The snow had melted. New grass shoots broke through the soil. Children's laughter came from the mutual aid station in the distance. The world was full of life. I suddenly understood the truth. In the apocalypse, only being kind to others and sticking together with love can withstand the storms. Walking out of the dimension, I saw the fire in the bunker roaring. My adoptive mother was busy in the kitchen. Caleb and my adoptive father discussed the route to the base. The frozen winter had passed. In the morning light of reunion, our new life was just beginning.